Hey everyone! Today I'm going to talk about the Andrew Lloyd Webber Phantom of the Opera musical, and I am super excited. I feel like this is long overdue, but every time I've tried to tackle such a video, I've been like, ugh, how am I going to keep it focused? How am I going to organize it? How do you review a musical? But I've been making videos for 5 years now, and I'm tired of putting it off. So here is the somewhat organized story of how I became a Phantom fan, focusing primarily on the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical. Based on the book by Gaston Leroux, which has been adapted into at least a dozen films, the musical tells the story of Christine Daae, a naive young soprano who's receiving singing lessons from a mysterious voice she believes is a spirit sent by her dead father. A series of threatening incidents committed by the opera ghost, who's blackmailing the opera's managers, force the prima donna to quit on short notice, allowing Christine her chance to take center stage. Her debut is a big success, but when her unseen teacher makes himself known to her by bringing her below the opera house to his underground lair, she's devastated to learn that her angel of music is no angel at all, but the opera ghost, Eric in the book, just the Phantom in the musical, who is a deformed lunatic who's in love with her. The show premiered in London in 1986 with music by Andrew Lloyd Webber and lyrics by Charles Hart, with additional lyrics by Richard Stilgoe. It was a massive hit and had a hugely successful debut on Broadway the following year. It won numerous awards and is currently the longest-running show on Broadway and the third longest-running show in the West End. Childhood, early exposure. Going way back to when I was little, one of the CDs my mom used to play was Andrew Lloyd Webber's Premiere Collection, which I've since learned is a compilation of demo recordings that would get radio play, of his biggest hits to date. I think that CD came out in 1990. On this CD are 3 songs from The Phantom of the Opera, the title song, The Music of the Night, and All I Ask of You. I grew up hearing those songs and enjoying them, even though I didn't really have any concept of the story behind them, and I believe that was my earliest exposure to Phantom, certainly to the musical. I still enjoy those tracks, even though they're very different from the versions that are in the show. This version of the title song is the super 80s one with Sarah Brightman and rocker Steve Harley. All I Ask of You is Sarah Brightman again, singing with pop star Cliff Richard. It's a pleasant, mellow rendition. And the Music of the Night demo is performed by the OG himself, Michael Crawford. This version, which features some different lyrics that I like quite a lot, is a little bit easier for casual listening than the version that's actually part of the original cast recording, which has a very startling ending. Other phantom-y things that happened in my childhood, I do think that I saw an unmasking scene from one of the old movies, but I'm not sure which one. It was either Chaney or Rains. My sister must have been curious about the original story by Gaston Leroux because she got the book on tape out of the library. Yeah, book on tape. Cassette tapes. Remember those? We listened to that, and it was quite different from the musical songs. At some point when I got a little older, I read the book myself. Before that, though, I read my Bailey School Kids book, Phantoms Don't Drive Sports Cars, and I think I read the Goosebumps book, Phantom of the Auditorium, too. And thanks to my mom being a Charles Dance fan, I saw the 1990 miniseries a few times, unaware then that its script was based on the other Phantom of the Opera musical, Yeston and Kopit's Phantom. 2004 movie. Fast forward to 2005, I remember seeing ads on TV for the film adaptation of the musical the December before, and I think we were all intrigued. We didn't go see it, but after it came out on DVD, we got it out of the library. I enjoyed it a lot, and apparently so did my mom and my sister, because a night or two later, there we were watching it again. And soon after that, I became obsessed. I don't remember how exactly the obsession started to manifest itself, but I must have talked about the movie an awful lot at school or something because my best friend gave me the 2-disc special edition soundtrack for my birthday, and oh my goodness, I listened to that thing at least once every single day, all the way through. I learned all the words to every song and sang along enthusiastically with all the parts. The movie was directed by Joel Schumacher and starred Gerard Butler, Emmy Rossum, and Patrick Wilson. I didn't know it in the beginning, but as I started to explore the fandom and look at forums and such, all things that were a whole new world to me, I learned that the movie was, and still is, very divisive. Some people love it, some people hate it, and some people, like me, don't know what to think. I loved the movie. But one thing led to another. I started to get curious about the stage show and checked out the original cast recording and started watching bootleg videos on YouTube. I think it was one of the first things that I watched on YouTube. Soon enough, I was comparing the two versions of the musical and realizing that I preferred the stage show. And that made me feel less interested in rewatching the movie. Plus, the internet did what it could to ruin the movie for me, pointing out plot holes and inconsistencies and stuff. The same thing that the internet's still doing today to ruin movies. I didn't come to hate the movie, I didn't want to be that negative, and I found over the years that I can't hate the movie. It's thanks to the movie that I became a fan of the musical in the first place, and I got hours of joy from it. I think the movie has some strengths. It's a spectacle, the overture sounds amazing, and the orchestrations in general are great. Gerard Butler may not have the voice I want for the Phantom, but he sure did look hot. I hate Patrick Wilson's hair, but his voice is really nice, and Minnie Driver's hammy performance as Carlotta makes her scenes a highlight. But there are weaknesses too. I wish Emmy Rossum's performance wasn't quite so vanilla. Some of the vocals are rough, although I do give people tremendous props for doing their own singing. I find a lot of the artistic choices uninspiring. Costuming, choreography, editing, random unnecessary cutaways. It's just strange that some scenes are so bright and garish and others are so bland. And certain things are ridiculous to the point that they become distracting, like Christine suddenly having a ton of smoky eyeshadow and no stockings in the lair. It's a tiny thing, but such a weird inconsistency. The movie just doesn't have the same appeal for me that it used to. That said, if my mom says she wants to watch the movie, I'm not going to say no. The stage show. So I got the original cast recording out of the library. That's the original 1986 London cast with Michael Crawford, Sarah Brightman, and Steve Barton. There are a lot of differences between the stage show and the movie that surprised me. Most, if not all, of the dialogue is actually sung in the show. There's no sword fight. There are no flash-forward scenes. The chandelier crash does not happen in Act 2 just before the final lair, but at the end of Act 1 before the intermission. Many of the costumes are completely different, as is the staging in certain scenes, and the stage show has way more maniacal laughter. Soon I was listening to the original London cast recording at least once every day instead of the movie soundtrack, which no longer cut it for me, and of course I was singing along with the whole thing. I know I must have sounded like a crazy person as I sat alone in my room, doing my homework and singing along with all of the singers and sometimes the instruments. I had headphones on too, and therefore didn't realize how loud I was, didn't realize that probably everybody in the house could hear me. Nobody said anything, which somehow makes it even more embarrassing now. But you bet your boots I tried to hit Christine's high note at the end of the title song, and sometimes I did get it. It didn't sound good, but I got it. I squeaked and screeched my way to it. Seeing it live. It wasn't long after I became obsessed with this stage show that I started fantasizing about seeing it live, and thanks to my very wonderful parents, especially to my very tolerant dad, who really doesn't care for musicals at all, but knew that I wanted to see the show more than anything, I did get to see the US tour twice. Twice in less than 18 months, actually, but I saw different principals. The first time we saw Gary Maurer, Marie Danvers, and Jim Weitzer. The second time we saw Rob Laurie, an understudy for John Cudia, Marnie Robb, and Greg Mills. I was disappointed at first when we got to the theater and I found out that we were going to be seeing an understudy in the lead, but Rob Laurie was the best. He threw himself into the role and he was just amazing. I wish more people knew about him because he was so good, and I really enjoyed Greg Mills' Raoul, so that was a great night. I loved seeing the show live. Nothing beats a live performance. The energy is electric, the emotions are so much more intense, the pyrotechnics, whoa. I haven't seen it on Broadway yet in all these years, but you never know. Going full fan. At some point during all this immersion in the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, I went full fan. I guess it was only a matter of time, and then I was rereading the original book, including the Lowell Bear translation, which is way better than the more common DeMatteis translation, reading related books like Susan Kay's Phantom, which I did a 20-minute oral book report on, which my classmates probably thought was super boring. Also that Sherlock Holmes spin-off, The Angel of the Opera, which I don't remember anything about, and Terry Pratchett's Masquerade, which incidentally was my introduction to Discworld, tracking down other movie versions and other musicals, and getting introduced to the wonderful world of fan fiction. I didn't even know fan fiction existed until I became a Phantom fan. There's a ton of bad fan fiction out there, yes, but there are some gems too. I did try writing some of my own. It was not good. The evidence has since been destroyed. If you really want to know, when I read Phantom fanfiction, I seem to prefer modern alternate universe fanfics with EC pairings. RC is canon for me when it comes to the adaptations, but I ship EC for fanfiction, which is basically wish fulfillment. And if you want to see some other stuff I collected, stuff I made, word collages, textbook covers that I slapped pictures on, which was very unusual for me, souvenirs, including this cool t-shirt. It glows in the dark, see? This bear that I phantomized. Of course I have my own half mask. It's actually really not comfortable. I even made my school projects Phantom-themed whenever possible. I'm not sure if my teachers thought that was amusing or weird. I guess the deep psychological question is why? Why did I fall so hard for this story and this musical? Unfortunately, I have no definite explanation. As far as the show goes, I love the music, the orchestrations, the lyrics, the staging, the tremendous theatricality of it all. But there's gotta be something more, some reason why I never get tired of the story. Maybe it's the compelling character of the Phantom, who is sometimes just a villain, and sometimes a tragic anti-hero. Maybe it's Christine's tragedy, her loss of innocence, and the way she finds herself pulled in two different directions. I don't know, I can't really pinpoint one thing. I just love it. 25th anniversary concert. I was psyched when this came out. Les Miserables got 2 concerts. It's about time that Phantom had one. I really like the cast. I'm not sure I'd say that Ramin Karimloo and Sierra Boggess are my favorites in the roles, but they both do a great job. His Phantom is both commanding and vulnerable, and her Christine has that wide-eyed innocence that ultimately turns into trust betrayed. And I really like Hallie Fraser's Raoul. Some of the staging and filming is a little unusual, but this is the Royal Albert Hall, not Phantom's home theater, so everything's gotta be adapted for the stage's limitations. And I think, all things considered, they managed pretty well. I'm especially glad they didn't do it in concert format with everyone just standing at microphones. It's so much richer for being acted out. The special anniversary stuff they do at the end is fun too. It's nice to see Colm Wilkinson again, and I'm tickled pink that they asked John Owen Jones and Anthony Warlow to participate. Some favorite performers and performances. This is by no means an exhaustive list. These are just some performances that have stuck out to me over the years or that I've repeatedly gone back to. I am partial to John Owen Jones's Phantom, primarily because of his voice, which is like butter, but also because of the way he uses his hands. It's very fascinating. He's also known for his crazy Phantom, which is extreme. There are a lot of bootlegs on YouTube of his performances, or at least there used to be. There used to be a full upload of a performance of the Madrid production of El Fantasma de la Opera, starring Juan Carlos Barona and Julia Moller. It was a great performance. The fact that it was in Spanish was hardly a hindrance, because I knew all the words, and I do know a little bit of Spanish. I think it made me cry, which was pretty impressive, because at that time, I wasn't nearly as sappy as I am now. It took a little bit more to make me cry, probably now I would cry over everything. And someone a little while back introduced me to an audio-only recording on YouTube of a 1987 London performance with Michael Crawford, Rebecca Kane, and Steve Barton, and it's amazing. The quality is just astounding, and the performances are wonderful. Crawford is even better here than on the original London cast recording, and he gives a heartbreaking performance. I really enjoy Rebecca Kane's Christine. She conveys so much warmth and emotion in her voice. She came over from the original Canadian production in Toronto. She can be heard starring with Colm Wilkinson's Phantom on this CD. This was not long after she played Cosette to his Valjean in Les Miserables, so yeah, it's a little funny. And what can I say about the late great Steve Barton? I love his Raoul. I love him on the original cast recording. I love him even more here. He's so wonderful. His voice is good-natured. It has so much personality. I feel like Raoul often gets the short end of the stick. There are so many renditions that are kind of cardboard, but not Steve Barton's. Anyway, I'll be forever grateful to Hannah for pointing me toward this recording. An obligatory word or two about Love Never Dies. It's the sequel nobody wanted, but Andrew Lloyd Webber insisted on writing. I haven't seen the filmed production with Ben Lewis and Anna O'Byrne. I'm not sure I want to, but I have listened to the Ramin Karimloo and Sierra Boggess recording, and I guess it's not the worst thing ever. I just don't like it. I'm against it on principle. I don't like the plot. Certain characters are completely ruined, and most of the songs are either boring or just awkward. But there are a few good numbers. Till I Hear You Sing is a great song. Why Does She Love Me? I don't like the circumstances of the song, but it is a pretty good melancholy number. And The Beauty Underneath, I kind of hate it, but I kind of love it. Some favorite parts of the show. The overture, of course. It's exciting, it's loud, it lets you know this is it, the show's started. The moment when Christine goes through the mirror and the Phantom's theme starts, and then the drums go and things really kick off. The violin licks in the third and especially the fourth verse of the title song. Stranger Than You Dreamt It, the first big emotional moment as the Phantom drags himself across the floor. The Il Muto performance. For one thing, the farcical opera is really funny, especially live. The chaos after Carlotta's croak is hilarious as the managers freak out and rush to bring the ballet on early. Then things turn spooky as the Phantom starts stalking Joseph Bouquet in the rafters. From the audience, you can't see anything except the Phantom's shadow overwhelming the stage and swooping like a bird of prey. In the rooftop scene, when Christine sings the line, "But his voice filled my spirit with a strange, sweet sound. In that night there was music everywhere, and through music my soul began to soar, and I heard as I never heard before." It's such a beautiful piece of music, one of the highlights of the score, and it encapsulates the pull the Phantom has for Christine. Christine singing a slower version of the first verse of the title song in the transition to the graveyard scene, backed with haunting violins. Actually, the whole graveyard section has become a favorite part to me, because Wishing You Were Somehow Here Again is a great solo, and then I love the Wandering Child trio. It's only a duet in the US productions, which I think is a shame. I think it's a much stronger moment if you have the Phantom and Christine singing to each other on the one side, and then an anguished Raoul standing on the other side, trying to understand this power the Phantom exerts over her. The Point of No Return. The song is part of the Phantom's opera Don Juan Triumphant, and he snuck his way on stage to join Christine for this kind of racy, heavily metaphorical seduction duet. What makes it one of my favorite scenes is the element of disguise, the tension between the two characters, and the variety of interpretations. Different actors do different things with it. Some Phantoms assume Piangi's accent through the whole song, some start with the accent and then gradually forget to do it as they get into the performance. Some Phantoms say skip the accent, I don't care if she knows it's me. Meanwhile, some Christines are totally unaware it's him until they feel his mask under the cowl, and others suspect something's up right away. There are renditions when Christine's innocent and the Phantom's acting worldly wise. There are other times when they reverse roles and Christine is the more forward one. Studying how different performers have handled this scene over the years is endlessly fascinating to me. The final layer trio. The whole final layer sequence is important, but the part I'm most likely to listen to repeatedly, other than the very end, is the trio. That's the part where the Phantom and Christine and Raoul are all singing over each other. I worked so hard to learn all three parts. I like to listen to it and sing along with one character, then go back and sing along with another, then go back again and sing along with the third. I told you, it sounds crazy when I'm singing along with this musical. There are definitely other parts of the show I love, and I could probably go on talking about this for a lot longer, but I've covered a lot of ground here, and I think you get the idea. My Phantom obsession did eventually settle down after several years. I've mellowed a bit, not that I was ever especially hyper about it, although some people would probably say otherwise. This video would certainly be different if I'd done it, 13 years ago. But once a fan, always a fan, I think. There's never going to be a point when I don't get excited listening to the music or feel moved by a particularly good performance. Now I want to hear from you. Do I have any fellow Phantom fans in the audience? Have you seen the show live? Who did you see? Please feel free to share your thoughts and your memories down in the comments below. I'd love to read stuff like that. I love to know who people have seen. I've watched so many bootlegs, and it's always fun when somebody says, "Oh, I saw so-and-so," and I think, I didn't see them live, but I watched an illegal recording of their performance. That doesn't sound too good, does it? I hope you enjoyed this video, and please forgive me for it being so long. I had a feeling that this would happen when I eventually did get around to making this video. But it has been fun taking this trip down memory lane and bringing you along with me. I hope you got a kick out of it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye! I think the biggest problem, aside from the fact that it tends to go out here on the side, is that the nostrils aren't big enough, so if you exhale through your nose, it just makes this weird sound. Good thing I don't have a cold.